The door swung open so hard it cracked against the marble wall. Every head in the room snapped up. 12 board members in 12 expensive suits. 12 men and women who had spent their entire careers learning to keep their faces neutral. Every single one of them flinched. Marcus Webb did not break his stride. He walked to the head of the table, straightened his cufflinks, and dropped a single folder onto the polished surface. It slid across the table and stopped directly in front of Richard Voss, the man who had flown in from Berlin with a smile on his face and a $40 billion offer to swallow Webb Global whole. "Get out of my building," Marcus said. Richard Voss blinked. "Excuse me." "You heard me." Marcus leaned forward, both hands flat on the table. "I don't know what version of Marcus Webb you were expecting to meet today, but I'll tell you something for free. That man doesn't exist. Take your offer. Take your lawyers. And get out of my building." The room was absolutely still. Richard Voss gathered his papers slowly, deliberately, the way men do when they want you to know they are not afraid of you. He stood, buttoned his jacket. And then, just before he reached the door, he turned back. "You have 72 hours, Mr. Webb," he said quietly. "After that, we proceed without your cooperation." The door closed. Nobody spoke for a full 10 seconds. Then Marcus Webb sat down, exhaled through his nose, and said, "Someone get me Hyun-Jae Park." What nobody in that boardroom understood, what nobody in Marcus Webb's world fully understood, was that the man sitting at the head of that table was terrified. Not of Voss Industries. Not of the hostile takeover. Not of losing the company he had spent 26 years building from the bones of nothing. Marcus Webb was terrified of dying without leaving a single thing behind that mattered. He had grown up in a 2-bedroom apartment in the Mechanicsville neighborhood of Atlanta, Georgia. His mother, Gloria Webb, worked double shifts at a hospital laundry 6 days a week. She smelled like industrial detergent and cheap hand lotion, and she had the most beautiful laugh Marcus had ever heard in his life. She died of a stroke when he was 12 years old. His grandmother, Ida Mae Webb, raised him after that. Strict, God-fearing, immovable as granite. She used to sit across from him at the kitchen table every Sunday morning and say the same thing while he ate his grits. "Marcus, a man who leaves nothing behind, was never really here." He had carried those words like a stone in his chest for 36 years. He had built Webb Global Communications from a one-room office and a second-hand desk. He had negotiated deals on 4 continents. He had been on the cover of Fortune magazine 3 times. He had an 8-bedroom penthouse in Manhattan and a villa in Tuscany he had visited exactly twice. And he was completely, devastatingly alone. His board had been circling the issue for 2 years. The company charter had a clause, a family succession clause that his late attorney had convinced him to include in the original documents, that gave controlling shares to a named family heir upon Marcus's death or incapacitation. Without a named heir, those shares dissolved into the open market. Voss Industries knew this. That was the entire strategy. Wait for Marcus to stay stubbornly childless, then move in the moment he was vulnerable. Marcus had tried to have the clause removed. His lawyers told him it would take 18 months and a shareholder vote. He did not have 18 months. He had 72 hours. Hyun-Jae Park arrived at Marcus's private office at 7 in the evening. He did not knock. That was the nature of their relationship. 12 years of business partnership had produced a particular kind of shorthand. Hyun-Jae walked in, removed his coat, hung it on the hook behind the door, and sat in the chair across from Marcus's desk as though he had been summoned for a routine meeting. He was 51 years old and looked 40. Lean, unhurried, precise in every movement. He ran Park Industries out of Seoul and Singapore simultaneously, and he did it with the kind of quiet authority that made louder men feel small without ever raising his voice. He looked at Marcus for a moment. Then he said, "You threw Voss out." "I did." "That was either very brave or very stupid." "Maybe both." Marcus stood and walked to the window. The Manhattan skyline spread out below him, all light and distance. "He gave me 72 hours. I know. My people called me before yours did." Hyun-Jae crossed one leg over the other. "So, what do you need?" Marcus turned from the window. He looked at this man, this careful, private, impossible-to-read man, who had been the most consistent presence in his professional life for over a decade. And he said the thing he had been rehearsing for 3 days. "I need a child tonight." Hyun-Jae's expression did not change. Not even slightly. He simply waited. "Not the way it sounds," Marcus said. He walked back to his desk, sat down, and slid a document across the surface. The succession clause. "I need to name a biological or legally adopted heir before the 72-hour window closes. If I can get a fast-track adoption filing started tonight, with your connections in Korea, with your legal team, I can get a provisional naming in the charter before Voss makes his next move." Hyun-Jae looked at the document. He did not pick it up. "There are American agencies," he said carefully. "Not with your speed. Not with your access." Marcus leaned forward. "You have contacts in the Korean family court system. You've done charitable work with 3 adoption foundations. You could make a call tonight that would take any American lawyer 6 months to arrange." He paused. "I trust you. I need someone I trust." The room was quiet. Somewhere far below, a car horn sounded and faded. "Why Korean roots specifically?" Hyun-Jae asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Because of Yuna." Something shifted in Hyun-Jae's face. It was small, barely detectable. The slight tightening around the eyes. A fraction of stillness that was different from his usual stillness. "What about Yuna?" he asked. "She's been on my mind lately. She was the only person I ever—" Marcus stopped. Pressed his thumb against the edge of his desk. "I don't know. I think about her more as I get older. I failed her. I was so consumed with building this company that I never showed up the way I should have. She deserved better than what I gave her." He exhaled. "If I'm going to name an heir, I want it to mean something. I want there to be a connection to something real. Something I actually cared about." Hyun-Jae Park was quiet for a very long time. Then he stood. He walked to the window and stood where Marcus had been standing. He looked out at the city for so long that Marcus wondered if he had somehow said the wrong thing entirely. "Hyun-Jae, I need you to listen to me carefully," Hyun-Jae said. His voice was the same as always, measured, controlled. But there was something underneath it now. Something that had not been there before. "What I am about to tell you, I should have told you years ago. I convinced myself the timing was never right. I convinced myself I was protecting people." He turned from the window. "I was wrong." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. A cold, slow movement. Like a door opening in a dark room. "Yuna," Hyun-Jae said, "was my cousin." Marcus stared at him. "What?" "Her mother and my mother were sisters. We grew up in the same family, different cities, but the same family. When she moved to New York at 24, she stayed with my family for the first 6 months." Hyun-Jae returned to his chair. He sat down, and for the first time in 12 years of knowing this man, Marcus saw something close to guilt in his face. "I never told you because she asked me not to. She was very private about her family. She said she wanted to build a life that was entirely her own." "You knew her," Marcus said slowly. "All this time. You knew who she was and you never said anything." "Yes." "Hyun-Jae, there is more." Hyun-Jae reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and removed his phone. He opened it, scrolled once, then placed it on the desk and pushed it toward Marcus. Marcus looked down. It was a photograph. Old, the color slightly faded the way digital photos look when they have been transferred too many times across too many devices. A hospital room. White sheets. Monitors in the background. Yuna. She looked exhausted and radiant and young, so heartbreakingly young, and she was holding a newborn baby wrapped in a blue blanket. The baby's eyes were closed. Its tiny fist was pressed against its cheek. At the bottom of the screen, a date. 19 years ago. Marcus's hands were very still on the desk. "Turn it over," Hyun-Jae said quietly. "I mean, swipe." Marcus swiped. The back of the original photograph had been photographed too. In Yuna's handwriting, her particular looping, careful handwriting that Marcus would have recognized anywhere, 4 words. "His name is Seo-jin." The silence in the room was absolute. Marcus Webb, who had stared down hostile boardrooms and negotiated with heads of state and stood at his mother's grave without shedding a single public tear, pressed his fist against his mouth and could not speak. "She was already pregnant when she left you," Hyun-Jae said. His voice was quiet, careful, like someone speaking near something fragile. She found out 3 weeks after she moved out. She was afraid, Marcus. Not of you. She never said she was afraid of you. She was afraid of what your life would do to a child. You were working 18-hour days. You were building something that consumed everything around it. She said she loved you too much to watch a baby grow up invisible inside your ambitions. Marcus's jaw was tight. He was staring at the photograph. She came to me, Hyun-Jae continued. She called me from a payphone, you remember payphones, and she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. She asked me to take the baby. She said she would raise him with me, in my home, with my family. She said he would have stability. She said he would have a name and a history and 2 feet on solid ground. A pause. She made me promise not to tell you until the time was right. She's been dead for 7 years, Marcus said. His voice was barely audible. When was the time going to be right? I don't know, Hyun-Jae said. I asked myself that question every year. Every time I saw you. Every time I shook your hand in a boardroom and watched you talk about legacy, and I knew. He stopped. I was a coward. I told myself I was honoring her wishes. I was a coward. Marcus pushed back from the desk. He stood. He walked to the far end of the room and stood with his back to Hyun-Jae for a long time. When he turned around, his eyes were red but his face was composed. Seo-jin. He's your son. The boy I've seen in photographs. He is 18 years old, Hyun-Jae said. He knows I adopted him. I told him that myself when he was 13. I thought it was important that he know the truth about that much. He paused. He does not know who his biological father is. I told him only that his father was a good man who did not know he existed. That's generous, Marcus said bitterly. It was the most honest thing I could say at the time. Marcus walked back to his desk. He sat down. He looked at the photograph one more time and then slid the phone back across to Hyun-Jae. He was quiet for so long that the city outside seemed to dim. I want to meet him, he said finally. I know. Tonight. Marcus. He is my son. The words came out careful and deliberate, like he was testing how they felt in his mouth. He is my son, and I have 72 hours, and I have wasted 19 years. I want to meet him tonight. Hyun-Jae studied him for a long moment. Then he said, he is not a document to be filed. He is not a solution to your succession problem. If you walk into a room with him tonight thinking about charter clauses and Voss Industries, I will walk you back out myself. That's not. I need to hear you say it. Marcus looked at him. It's not about the company. Say it again. It is not about the company. His voice broke slightly on the last word. He composed himself. He's my son. It has never been less about the company than it is right now. Hyun-Jae nodded once. He picked up his phone. Give me an hour. They met at a small Korean restaurant in Midtown that Hyun-Jae had booked privately, no other guests, no staff in earshot. Just a round table, 3 chairs, and the particular quality of silence that exists in a room where something enormous is about to happen. Hyun-Jae Park arrived 7 minutes late with his hands in his pockets. He was tall. That was the first thing Marcus noticed. Tall and lean with Yuna's jawline, and something around the eyes that made Marcus's chest ache in a way he was completely unprepared for. He moved with a loose, unhurried confidence, the kind that is not performed but earned. He looked at Marcus, and then at Hyun-Jae, and then back at Marcus. You're Marcus Webb, he said. I am. I know your company. He sat down. My father, he glanced at Hyun-Jae, he never talked about you much. But I researched you once when I was 15. You built something real. He said it simply, without flattery. A statement of fact. Thank you, Marcus said. They ordered food. For a while, they talked about almost nothing, the restaurant, the neighborhood, a technology conference that Seo-jin had attended in Tokyo. He was studying computational design. He was building a software platform with 2 friends from university. He spoke about it the way people speak about things they genuinely love, and Marcus sat across from him and felt something cracking open slowly in the middle of his chest. Then Marcus said, I knew your mother. Seo-jin looked up from his bowl. His face was careful. Still. Hyun-Jae mentioned that, he said. He didn't say much. She was extraordinary, Marcus said. She was the kind of person who, when she walked into a room, The room became more honest somehow. Like everyone wanted to be a slightly better version of themselves. He stopped, looked down at his hands. I didn't deserve her patience. I was too busy building things to notice the most important thing that was right in front of me. Seo-jin was watching him carefully. What was she like? I mean, personally. Not the things people say. Actually. She laughed at her own jokes before she finished telling them, Marcus said immediately. She kept every book she ever read even if she hated it because she said you owed it to a bad book to at least let it take up space on a shelf. She made the best jollof rice you've ever tasted, and she refused to tell anyone the recipe. His voice caught slightly. She used to say that love without courage is just fear in a nice suit. The table went quiet. Seo-jin looked at him for a very long moment. Something was moving behind his eyes, something being assembled, piece by piece. She said that to me too, he said softly. A lot. I know, Marcus said. She said it to me first. The silence stretched. Hyun-Jae sat very still, watching them both. Seo-jin set down his chopsticks. He looked at Hyun-Jae. Appa, he said quietly, is there something you need to tell me? Hyun-Jae exhaled. He reached across the table and covered Seo-jin's hand with his. There is something we both need to tell you, he said. And I am sorry it took this long. What happened in the next hour in that small, private dining room was not recorded. No phones. No lawyers. No documents. Just a father who had spent 19 years not knowing, a son who had spent 18 years not knowing, and the man who had carried the weight of that secret until it had nearly crushed him. Seo-jin did not cry. He sat very still and listened and asked 3 questions, each one precise and unhurried, the way someone processes information they are choosing to receive with dignity rather than chaos. When it was over, he sat back in his chair and stared at the ceiling for a long moment. Then he looked at Marcus. So, what do you want from me? Marcus had been rehearsing versions of an answer to that question all evening. He had thought about the charter, about the succession clause, about Voss Industries and 72 hours and the entire machine that had sent him searching for an heir in the first place. None of it came out. Nothing, he said. I want nothing from you. I don't want to waste any more time pretending I don't have a son. Seo-jin studied him. Long enough to be uncomfortable. Then he said, okay. I'm not running your company. And Marcus Webb laughed. It came out of him without warning, deep and genuine and slightly helpless, the laugh of a man who has been wound so tight for so long that release, when it finally came, was almost violent in its relief. I'm not asking you to, Marcus said. Good. Seo-jin picked up his chopsticks again. Because I have my own company to build. At 11:30 that night, Marcus Webb called his board chairman. I'm withdrawing the emergency motion, he said. Let Voss file. We'll fight it the normal way. Marcus, if you do that, I know what happens. I've known for a long time. He was sitting at his desk again, looking at a city that felt different than it had 8 hours ago. Some things are worth more than the fight. He hung up. Voss Industries completed their hostile takeover of Webb Global Communications 7 months later. It was one of the largest corporate acquisitions in that year. Marcus Webb walked away with $200 million from his shares and 0 regrets. He said so publicly. People assumed he was performing grace in defeat. He was not performing anything. Hyun-Jae Park, he took both names, because he decided both men had earned a piece of him, launched his software platform at 21. By 25, it was valued at $3 billion. He did it without his father's money, without his adoptive father's connections, and with 2 university friends who believed in the idea before anyone else did. On his 22nd birthday, he received a handwritten letter. It had been placed under his apartment door at some point in the early morning. It read, I should have been braver sooner. But I am here now. And I am not going anywhere. Happy birthday, son. I am proud of you for reasons that have nothing to do with anything you have built and everything to do with who you are. Every year after that, another letter arrived. He kept every one of them, every single one, even the years the letters were short, even the year Marcus was sick and the handwriting was unsteady and the words were only 4 lines long. He kept them the way his mother used to keep every book she had ever read, even the ones that broke her heart, Even the ones she never finished lined up on the shelf, spine out, present and accounted for. Because some things, once you finally have them, you never let take up less than their full and rightful space in your life. If this story moved you even slightly, hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find stories like this one. Subscribe if you want to come back for more, and drop a comment below. Tell us, would you have made the same choice Marcus made at the end? Would you have let the empire go? We read every single comment. Every one. See you in the next story.